it not only was great because then it gave them an idea of what to maybe get someone going through treatment, but it also educated them on a side effect and symptom they probably never knew about. I didn't know about it. And I wouldn't randomly just bring up toe infections to people when they ask how I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I started realizing that this building this community of giving and receiving was really bringing a lot of awareness and education around things that are difficult to talk about while helping people on all ends.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And on today's podcast, I give a very feel-good story. I'm going to share with you someone who has turned their pain into purpose, a cancer diagnosis into an organization that supports not only cancer patients, their caregivers, or everyone that has been affected by cancer. And after listening to today's podcast, you might start to see how potentially the world, the universe will give us pain, struggles, obstacles, challenges as a calling for us to step into a bigger version of ourselves, to remind us that potentially how we were living our life was playing too small, that the universe has something much, much bigger in store for us. Now, before we get into this conversation, if you are new to the podcast, welcome into the Thrive State Podcast. This is a place where thought leaders, experts in health, longevity, peak performance, wellness, all come together to give you the insights, the tools for you to take your life, your health, your relationships into the next level. If you are returning, thank you for allowing the show to grow. Thank you for commenting, for engaging, for subscribing to this podcast because it's giving you value. And if you'd like to support the show further, please go to wherever you listen to your podcast, leave us a 5-star review, subscribe if you haven't already, engage with it, and please share it with your friends and family members. And as a huge gift for doing so, I want to give you some free resources, breathwork exercises on how to get more energy, more calm, more clarity into your life, lecture notes from my global keynote on thriving, as well as Thrive State book resources, all delivered into your inbox. You can get all this for free at thrivestatestarter.com. Now, on to today's guest. She's actually someone I met recently in a mastermind filled of keynote speakers, thought leaders from all around the world. And she's got such a beautiful story to tell. And yes, she's somebody actually in her early 30s who discovered she had stage 4 breast cancer. And she is still a cancer thriver now, still getting treatment now, but she's really turned that experience into a mission to do something much, much bigger. Now, whether you've got cancer yourself, know of somebody with cancer, or you've just been given a situation in life that just sucked, this is really a story of resilience. This is a story of turning pain into purpose. But it's a great example of how potentially the things that you think in life are happening to you is really happening for you, to remind you about how beautiful life is, to remind you of the strength and potential you have yet to tap into yourself. You're going to get all this and so many more nuggets, and you're going to want to know more about this person. And I'm guarantee you that her tool is something that probably you or someone you know are going to use in the future because it's going to help so many people. So please enjoy this conversation with Elissa Kalver, the CEO of We've Got This.org. Elissa Kalver, welcome to the Thrive State Podcast.
Thank you. So excited to be here. Appreciate you having me.
I am just so thrilled that we got a chance to meet. For people who don't know, we actually got a chance to meet at a keynote speaker community. And I love meeting people in this community because you really get a sense of the change makers that we have in the world. And I can't wait to kind of dive into a little bit of what you do, why you do it, and the story leading up to it. But before we do, there is a segment on the show, game show style. You live in LA, which means that you actually get to reap the benefits sooner than some of these other winners that I've had on my show. But you win a healthy meal on me if
Ooh,
you win. Five quick questions to get to know you better, called the Five to Thrive. And so I want to ask you, Elissa, are you ready to play the Five to Thrive?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Question number one is, what did you want to be when you grew up as a child?
I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was a kid for sure. I just like loved animals and wanted to be a part of it. And then as I grew up, I just continued to love animals and not want to be a veterinarian anymore.
Yeah, I find that with pediatricians as well. Question number two is there a dream in your life that is still left buried that you haven't yet accomplished?
A dream, you said?
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm sure there is. I think ooh, that's a tough one. Yes, but I think that that's been redefined because of so many, drastic life changes that I feel really good now that as I uncover those things, I'm like, let's bury that the hell out of there and do it.
We'll help you. I actually lead, we're leading a few people through a bucket list right now. So we'll find out what yours are and see if we can support. Question number three is, what insight, a book, quote that you can think of was a instrumental way in shifting the way you viewed the world?
There's a Van Gogh quote that I remember from a book I read, I think in high school or college, and it was the purpose of life is to breathe as hard as we can breathe.
Mm,
And that always really resonated with me. So when there's things that come up that I really want to do, I really go full force when it's something that means a lot to me. And I think of that quite a bit.
beautiful quote. Question number four. So far, you're doing great. 3,000 points. Will you get the last two questions? We will find out. Question number four is, if you were on stage with 50,000 people as your audience and I gave you a mic to sing a karaoke song, what song would that be?
It would be friends in low places.
Oh, country.
It would be that one because I have kind of a lower voice and I'd feel
Yeah,
more comfortable as
yeah.
a male country singer. And also I'm all about hanging with my friends. So that's one I find entertaining.
Beautiful. And question number five, for all the marbles, is, how does Elissa want to be remembered?
Oh yeah. Well, I gotta nail this because I really want that healthy meal with you. But I definitely want to be remembered as living, living my life to the fullest and encouraging others to do that too. So I hope that people that spend time with me and get to be with me feel that lasting impact, while I'm here and once I'm gone someday too.
That is so beautiful. Thank you. Yes, you get 5,000 points. Yes, you get a meal on me. And that very last answer on living is what I am starting to recognize. I led a cancer nonprofit years ago, and so many of the people shared their stories of their experience. And they said that, cancer has been one of the most beautiful experiences that they had to go through, only because they realized they weren't living prior to that. And what we're also seeing in terms of the research that's coming out is the things that we do that make us feel alive, that when we have in that energetic state, we actually change the biochemistry of our body that activates genes that actually make us live longer. So that's some pretty cool stuff.
It's really cool. Yeah, I love reading about that and seeing some of the things you talk about that because one, how amazing to get to enjoy our lives more. Like if for nothing else, we should live more so that we can enjoy our lives. But then to know that there's also these additional positive impacts of it is like a double whammy. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So let's dive into it. We're going to be talking about the nonprofit We Got This. And I know it really stems around your experience with cancer, but let's talk a little bit about the diagnosis. If you could take us back to that moment in time, how did you come up with the diagnosis? Where were you in your life, family wise, what you were doing from work when you got that diagnosis, and when was that?
Absolutely. So My daughter's 3.5. And when I had her in July of 2020, during obviously a very weird time in the world, I felt great, especially throughout my pregnancy, other than the fact that we were quarantined. I was in really great shape. I felt so good throughout my pregnancy. Having my daughter was great. And then it was a little bit after that that I started getting back into tennis and some of the sports that I played regularly. And I started having numbness in my feet. That was the first thing that really happened. I'd be on the tennis court, and like 20 to 30 minutes into playing, I had to take my shoes off. I like literally couldn't feel my feet. They would go
Wow.
completely numb. So I started realizing that something was going on, and I went to specialists. I got a lot of blood work done, everything you could really think of, and nothing directed to breast cancer. Although, because I was doing full workups, my primary care physician did a breast exam just a couple months before I was diagnosed. Because I was 34 at the time, I'm 36 now, mammograms, and that isn't typical before 40. I have no family history of breast cancer. So I felt like something was wrong, couldn't figure out what. Very, I'm a healthy person. I owned a gym, I played sports and all this stuff. So I'm like, there's something up. And I know that it's, at first I was like, maybe it's plantar fasciitis or other things, but I've had that before. And I'm like, this is different. Something's off. Because I had had my daughter within the year, and we couldn't find something glaring, it just kind of kept being brought up that you had a baby, your body is recovering and all
Yeah.
these things. So it wasn't until my husband, who love him and he's amazing, jokingly just kind of like groped me. I was changing one morning, and he paused and was like, "Wait, what is that?" And then he was like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to scare you, but like I felt something." And I hadn't been breastfeeding for a while, which I'm grateful that that was the case, because I definitely would have wrote it off to just be a clogged milk duct. That's what it
Yeah.
felt like.
Hmm.
So it's like, well, we've been trying to figure out issues. No big deal to just send a message and get it checked out. I went into the doctor. They felt the lump, and then they also felt one in my armpit, which, now that I know a lot more about breast cancer, is pretty alarming. But at the time, I did not think I had cancer at all. And to give some background, I worked in financial services. I was traveling around Southern California quite a bit before COVID happened, and having my daughter, and working primarily with corporate retirement plans for ADP. I, was back at work and all that after maternity leave. And I remember calling up my boss and being like, everything's fine, but I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to have to, get some tests done. And they wanted to do a biopsy. And this all happened pretty quickly. And I knew that at the very least, they said, because they're not going to tell you after your scans that you have cancer, even if they think that you do. And so the radiologist was like, either way, I think this is something we should remove. So, in my head, I'm like, okay, that's a pain in the neck to have like a surgery, but I'll probably need a lumpectomy either way because it's a lump there. So I remember I was dressed for work. I had a bunch of meetings that day. I was about to head out for a work lunch, and I was drying my hair in my bathroom, and I got a call from not the radiologist I even knew. She was out that day. So it was some guy I'd never spoken to before. And he called and just kind of read my results. Like, he was just like,
Wow.
we're reaching back out. We got the results of your biopsies, and they were malignant. And I just kind of like, wait, are you telling me that I have breast cancer? And he was like, unfortunately, yes. So I knew nothing else at this point. And we all think, I think, to some degree, that we understand, especially breast cancer. It's one of those like really talked about, and unfortunately, so many people are affected by it. So I immediately called the medical team of my family, people I'm related to in the medical field. Luckily, my stepdad was a chief medical officer back east, and knew which questions to ask, and it was actually a surgeon first on the phone to kind of explain some of the information. And just going through it, then I knew that I was HER2 positive and ER&PR negative, so hormone negative for the breast cancer. And that was all I knew. And I knew that there was a tumor in my breast and in my lymph nodes. So it was probably at least stage 2. the following week that I had the PET scan,
Mhm.
and that was when my husband and I went in to meet with them and see the PET scan. I've never seen something like this. Like I knew what a PET scan was, but and my liver was completely lit up. Like
Wow.
it was it was all you could. My entire liver had cancer in it, and a little bit in my lower spine. So that was when we found out that it was stage 4. And that means so many different things depending on the type of cancer. And you just think stage 4 cancer, you just think you're dying. My husband had a panic attack. He was breathing into a paper bag as I was sitting there, just kind of like, well, what do we do? And we were figuring that out together. And I know he won't mind me telling about his panic attack because I think it's an important part of our process as a couple, and him being my primary caregiver, of us digesting information in different ways. And from that, we really strategized moving forward, like how we were going to process things as we go together. And it was after that that I knew I'd be going into chemo, and a lot was uncertain after that. And that was really when we were like, this is happening. And it was right before my daughter's first birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you've gotten this diagnosis, not knowing what was going to come, you know, ahead. What did you tell work, and did you have a support system other than your husband at that time?
Yeah. So at that time, we were doing construction on our house while living in it. It was like right in the middle of our kitchen being completely torn out. My daughter was staying in our bedroom with us, like all these things, because there was so much happening in the house. And my mom was visiting. And we even had plans that night. We figured we'd get the results that day. And we jokingly were like, oh, we'll go out to dinner and celebrate that I don't have breast cancer. Like, I did not think, none of us thought that I had breast cancer.
Wow. Mhm.
So I got the call by myself, and my husband was working from home that day. My mom was there. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, so I have to walk over and tell them this news. And I still didn't understand a lot about it. So this was pre PET scan and all that. I just knew that I had breast cancer. So I went in and I told my mom first because my husband was on a call. And I was like, so I just got a call from the doctor, and I don't know how to tell you this, but I do have breast cancer. And my mom was just like, wait, what? What do you mean? In shock. And as I would tell this to my mom, my husband, call my dad, start calling close friends and family, you have this moment where it's like, what's the right way to respond to that? We're not like built to, I think, have that kind of, there's no right way, right? And there's no wrong way. But there would be kind of this awkward gap of silence where it's like neither of us knew what to say. And I found myself filling that by saying, it's okay. Like, I got this, and I'll do whatever I have to do. And like, whatever it is, we'll do it. And like, we're going to get through it. And so the idea of saying I got this was something I just constantly was saying. If I look back at Instagram stories and all that, I would always have things that say like, I got this and that. And it slowly over time formed into we got this
Mhm.
instead.
Yeah.
And that was where I felt like over time, with how amazing my community was and how much people wanted to help. And then you start meeting all these people going through what you're going through. You think like, oh, I'm so young to have stage 4 breast cancer. And then unfortunately, you find out that you're not. Like, you're not that unique, unfortunately. I mean, all of our scenarios, I think, are very different, but unfortunately, so many people are affected. And that's when it just didn't feel right to say, I got this, or to tell people you got this. That felt so lonely to me.
Hmm.
And that's where it really became a we. Even before the idea of we got this.org and this gift registry, it was really like this community piece came first. That, there's no I in cancer. Cancer is a team sport to me. And there's so many invisible patients around you who are so affected by it, that that's really what started sticking out.
That's beautiful. Being an interventional oncologist years ago and dealing with, having a lot of patients in that realm, not everybody knows to reach out for community. It seemed almost reflexive to you that as you started to go through it, you started to really sort of reach out and see who else is out there. How did you get a sense of doing that? And were there parts of you that just wanted to retreat and do it alone?
I've always been a very collaborative person, always connecting, networking, partnering. That's what I've done throughout my career and really in anything I did personally too. My mother-in-law is over 10 years in remission from stage 4 lymphoma. She's an absolute badass. And when she was diagnosed, my husband started marathon training with Leukemia and Lymphoma Society for Team in Training. And I slowly got sucked into that world too. And we still are so close with Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and our friends from Team in Training. And that became a big part of our lives, was teamwork, especially around the cancer community, even though, you know, that was the closest I'd really been affected by it. I had grandparents when I was younger and things like that, but like really relevant in adult life, seeing my mother-in-law go through that changed my perspective and seemingly understanding of cancer in that community. So it was so instinctive for me to reach out for that. And it was right before I started chemo that a friend of mine from LLS surprised me. They had an artist do chalk all over our driveway and just, you know, go team and stronger than cancer and like cool designs and all this stuff to like, so I'd see it when I was leaving and coming from chemo. And it was those things that made a difference to me before I had cancer. Is those things that made me feel more connected to the people affected by it. And now that I was experiencing it. So the community piece, I used to own a gym. It was a cardio boxing gym in Woodland Hills for 4 years called Tap Out Fitness. And everything I did was always about the fit fam and our community and our family. And these are people that are lifelong friends that I still have. And so this to me felt natural to be like, I don't want to do this alone. I can't do this alone. And I knew it was our pediatrician, Dr. Julia, told me when I first got diagnosed, she was like, people are going to reach out to help. And I know you, and you're going to say no. You're going to say you don't need anything. And she was like, you need to make a list of just some things that Eric, you know, my husband, can respond with of what might help. Because these people are reaching out because they want to help you, but they don't realize that they really need to do it for themselves too. Like they want to feel a part of this and they want to feel useful and like they can help you. Because this is scary for other people in their 30s and friends and stuff to be like, oh my God, you know, that could be me. And I became really empathetic to that idea early on because I thought of how I felt when I was doing so much to support other patients and thrivers and survivors. And so that's where this idea came from, was that it was right before my daughter's first birthday I got diagnosed. And I had this text saved like in a note on my phone. So when people would say like, I'm so sorry to hear what you're going through, like, how can I help? What can I do? Have a text like, just you reaching out means the world to me. Thank you so much. I'll let you know if I need anything, you know?
Hmm.
And I thought to myself, like, this was so easy when I was pregnant or getting married. We normalize so much helping people in the good times,
Yeah.
and we make it a bit awkward and a burden unintentionally, and almost feeling like a charity case in the hard times.
Mm.
Like I didn't feel comfortable doing a GoFundMe. We did a meal train because so many people asked, and my friend Amber set it up for us, which was incredibly helpful. But we kind of put in it like, if you want to cook, reach out, but it would really be helpful if you just did like Grubhub gift cards. Cause I mean, I couldn't taste food for weeks at a time and
Mm.
other things. But again, our kitchen was torn down. So that was really helpful, everyone who did that. But essentially, because I didn't tell people what I needed, I ended up with a ton of blankets. That was like the thing. I think I just like exude that I love blanket. I don't know. Like I'm a comfy person. And I've talked to so many other, you know, cancer friends about this. And someone will be like, oh my God, that happened to me, but it was candles. Or that happened to me and it was coloring books, you know? And it was so great that people wanted to help. And I thought, like, man, they just spent like $50 on this 20th blanket I just received. How great would it be if I actually knew what I needed and people could contribute and also learn about what I needed? Because, you know, I use this example a lot. I would get cuticle infections in my toes, and Bombas socks don't have any seams in the toes, and they're
Mm.
really soft and comfortable, and I love their social mission. So I started like exclusively wearing Bombas, and they were one of our first partners and still are for wegotthis.org. We have affiliate discount codes on the site and all that to help people, and we get donations back. And that was an example that when I told people that, it not only was great because then it gave them an idea of what to maybe get someone going through treatment, but it also educated them on a side effect and symptom they probably never knew about. I didn't know about it. And I wouldn't randomly just bring up toe infections to people when they ask how I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I started realizing that this building this community of giving and receiving was really bringing a lot of awareness and education around things that are difficult to talk about while helping people on all ends.
I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, I just wanted to let you know, join our community. There's so many free resources and a great community of people that desire health, happiness, human potential, to have more in their life, more health, more energy. And when you have those two things together, you could create more happiness, more abundance, whether it be financial, romantic, all these things in your life. And if you're just starting out, you don't know where to go, just sign up for thrivestatestarter.com, because in there you're going to get a bundle of information that includes a longevity ebook, a longevity and performance resource guide, lecture notes that come from my keynotes at Google, at Fortune 500 companies, all the insights in that keynote in lecture slide form given to you. And then finally, breathwork. I share 3 powerful breathwork exercises to access calm, which really gives you clarity and peace during the day, to access energy if you need to wake up and really motivate yourself, and finally, a breathwork routine that you could do every single morning so that you could be very intentional with how you create that day. You could find all this stuff delivered free to your inbox at thrivestatestarter.com. And our community is growing. If you want to be a part of a community of people that desire the Thrive State, that are really in Thrive State themselves, and help other people along with that, you could be a part of the community. You can get group coaching from me. We do breathwork sessions, meditation sessions, and you also get to drop in and participate in podcasts in the future. You could find more about the community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. So check out those resources. You're not going to be disappointed. And please enjoy the remainder of this podcast.
That's beautiful. And as I look back at some of the cancer patients that I've had previously, it was hard to break that initial wall. Difficult for people to be vulnerable enough to ask what they needed. And then certainly the people around them, as much as they wanted to help, didn't know the best way and best approach as to how to ask or how to give. And I think normalizing that from what you're creating here is something really, really beautiful. So tell us now about maybe a little bit more of the mechanics of We've Got This. We got a sense of what it is. It really does sound like a gift registry for people going through the cancer experience, but I can see the potential and the possibilities of so much more as people start to just become a community within each other, potentially users and whatnot. What do you have in terms of the vision of this, and what is currently being offered now?
Absolutely. So I don't come from a tech background at all, but luckily I went to school for entrepreneurship. I went to Babson College, a small business school outside of Boston. And that's where the Bombas connection came in. The founders of Bombas went to Babson, and a lot of really great people. So Crocs was one of our initial partners and things like that. And we started building up the brand partners as I was fundraising to be able to afford to do the gift registry. So I spent so much time figuring out, can I just do this as like a plug-in, and market it so that cancer patients know that it exists, and kind of normalize this idea. And as I did that research, I realized that that wasn't the right way to do it, because I wanted us to have control over being able to not have control, essentially, like being able to offer it so that people could register for literally anything that they needed. I didn't want it to only be hooked up to Amazon or specific APIs. You can, of course, register for things off Amazon and Target, but you can also register for things off literally any website. We haven't really found any that doesn't work. So if you want custom blankets off Etsy or other things, you can let people know what you need, especially with specific medical requests. We've had people register for wheelchairs or other things. And you can also just request funds. So it's essentially like a GoFundMe and a baby list and a not.com all in one, and designed for the cancer thriver, patient survivor, whatever they identify with, to be able to have a picture, tell their story, and really show what they need. And that might be medical necessities, and it might be needing to get out to a concert before they start treatment. Or if it's a
Mm.
child, like having Spider-Man band-aids might be really comforting as opposed to the ones that they have at the hospital. And I think that all of those things are equally as important. I think that our lives and our quality of life while we live with cancer is just as important as curing that cancer. And I think it's an and thing, not an or thing. So really being alongside that for the journey with them. So that's what's there now. You can go to wegotthis.org. You can find a registry. So you could look up if a friend has one. You can also even put in like your zip code and see if people near you need things. If you just want to randomly buy someone a pair of socks or something they might need. And then you can create a registry very easily. It's all totally free. And you can add things from anywhere you want. You can add notes about it. You could add descriptions of like why you need that and things as well, and constantly be updating it. So when people send you that text, how can I help? You don't need to like save something in a note like I did. You can save in the note the link to your registry,
Mm.
and you can just send that, and you can still say, just you reaching out is all I need. But if you do want to help out, here's a list of the things that I was told would be helpful or would help me right now. Where I want to go with it is I really want to integrate the product recommendations and the affiliate marketing relationships that we have into the registry, because it provides discounts for the people purchasing it too. And it also gives donations back to us to help us to continue to fuel it. And I think being able to provide more recommendations is the biggest feedback we've got, in that, people will reach out like, this is so amazing. I'm so excited that I have this. I was just diagnosed a week ago. Can you like help guide me on where to start? And that's a lot of bandwidth pieces of just, we only have a few people on our team right now. And we're really building out a focus on recommendations. We call it like We Got Recs. If you follow our Instagram, I do continual We Got Recs of products and services. And then we do We Got Resources, which is free resources through other nonprofits and, resources doing great things for people who need it. And then registries. And those are, of course, what we've been discussing this whole time. But we also highlight registries. We have newsletters where we can put that out so that anyone registering, and again, this is any type of cancer, anyone at any stage that they feel like they need that support, for us to be able to help them promote that so more eyes can get on it and people get the help that they need. So from the product recommendations, that's where the Bombas, Crocs, Hyperice is one of my favorite partners we have. I've used that, especially in my marathon triathlon training days, but a lot through chemo too. I get back pain and other stuff that a massage gun or the Normatec is awesome for. And then the resources end, there's so many amazing nonprofits doing things to help fund cold capping. If people are really, anxious about losing their hair, that might be something they want that's not covered by insurance.
Mm.
Some people really want to be prepared with wigs and things like that. And I was more of a beanie person, and so being able to know kind of where to go for some of those financial resources and all that too. And then, being able to register and make the registry experience as seamless as possible.
That's beautiful. What a beautiful mission. And I could see, you light up when you talk about it. Can you talk a
Thank you.
little bit about what it's been like for you energetically, of maybe taking something that is painful and kind of turning this into a point of purpose?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. All of this is hard, right? Like my thing that I say, our slogan is like, cancer sucks, but together we got this. It sucks. Like cancer just sucks. That's what I would normally say to someone. And even though it sucks, there's this like huge silver lining in it that I'm so grateful that I found and that I get to bring other people in on. And that's the whole community piece that's just been a part of my life and who I am forever. when I was going through chemo, I came up with this idea in my 5th round of my original chemo. And, I was feeling sick. I was bald. I was in bed. And I was like, what am I doing? Because everyone tells you, take care of yourself, focus on yourself, And for me, being able to relate and talk to other people and do things that make this bigger than just me, if this is just me going through cancer and getting through it, and that's okay. Like, that's okay if that's what just for me, it felt like I have to make this more or else I'm just here feeling miserable. So I called up my good friend and CPA in that 5th round when I wasn't feeling well. And I was like, why haven't we started a nonprofit yet? And he's like, I don't know. Tell me, what are we going to do? And I was like, okay, I'm on it. Here's the problem I think we need to solve. And I started calling up friends, and I started just getting so energized by just the idea of discussing something. So, like, putting aside that I believe so strongly in our mission and what we're doing, and like, I'm so excited that I found this piece that really didn't exist, which I think is so rare in these days in anything to find that. I just got so excited and energized. And I was like, regardless of what this ends up being, this is like healing me right now. This is what I need to be doing. And there were some family and friends who were like, Elissa, it's like such a great idea, but like, can you just like get through this yourself first, And I remember talking to my husband and being like, I really feel like I have to do this. And he laughed and he was like, of course, because this is just who we are, but always doing a million things and crazy. But he said to me, he's like, I know you have to do this. So, let me know what we're doing and I'm here to support you.
Mm.
And obviously, I'm so lucky to have like the most amazing partner and caregiver and husband. And my family and friends have come out for the fundraisers we did and all this stuff. And it was at that point that we did a GoFundMe. My friend Alicia came over and recorded for me. And, it was again during COVID. So like she just came and was a 1-woman crew and did this really beautiful video for me explaining this idea. I didn't write it out. I had no business plan, nothing. And if you watch the original GoFundMe video, it's pretty much exactly what we ended up doing. And it felt like it just came so naturally that like, this is what I was supposed to do. Like this was I don't believe that everything happens for a reason, because I think that really sucks. Like, I think that's really unfair. But if this is going to happen, I think this was the result that I was meant to be driven towards. And we released that GoFundMe. And I remember saying, let's try to raise like 20,000. And that felt like so much money to me. And I had friends who were like, Elissa, you can't do this idea for 20,000. Like you need like 50 to 100,000 at least just to get started. And I was like, I can't fail right now. Like, I'm not in a place where, say we ask for 100 and we get 20, I'm going to feel like I failed, but that's like so much money, And basically, once we talked about it, I was like, all right, let's just do it. I'm going to do it no matter how long it takes. We're going to try to raise 100,000. And we raised 105,000 through the GoFundMe. And then we went on to raise over $500,000 over the last 2 years through fundraisers and peer-to-peer fundraising. We're a charity partner of the LA Marathon this past weekend. And we're trying to work a little bit smarter, not just hard the way I have with grant writing and individual donors and all that moving forward. But I felt so driven to make this happen. Like I felt this sense of urgency, not because I think I'm dying, but I do technically have terminal cancer and I think this needs to exist. So I wanted it to exist. I didn't want to spend 5 years brainstorming this tech startup idea and then someday it come out. And I was just so driven to get it to market. And that process, and still, even like today, I'm super fatigued. I'm in the middle, I'm like at the tail end of my 14-day chemo pill cycle. And tomorrow I go in for my infusions that I get every 3 weeks. Like I'm still very much living with cancer, in cancer treatment. And a lot of people would never know because it's not like me putting on an act. This is the energy that I feel because I live with such purpose. And I don't get paid for it quite yet, but this is the greatest job I've ever had. Like I get to talk all day about things that I believe so strongly in and that I really feel like can just change someone's life, like how they live with their life. And to me, that, like you said earlier, I mean, that's the legacy I want to leave. And that's what I want my daughter to grow up feeling.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I think not only do people with cancer can resonate, but I would probably say people who are trying to be entrepreneurs, people who are, discovering it's hard to go out there and make things work. You really give people a sense of what urgency really looks like and how just taking action towards the thing that makes you feel alive is what's there, and not to look at necessarily getting paid for that, just yet. But I already know you will be successful, just kind of given the energy you've displayed already and your sincere heart in doing so. So I think thank you. Think, whether one, I think everybody will get something out of this because, they don't have cancer, they probably know somebody of cancer, but not just that, to really recognize that there are things that enter our life that will suck. This is something I believe in. I believe it comes in definitely for us to be able to find a new level within ourselves, because the universe or God is asking of that of us to show up in a bigger way for other people. And so thank you for heeding the call that came through you. Now, before I ask my last question, if this podcast was going to be a version of a We Got This, and then you could ask anybody who's listening for something for not only yourself, but maybe for wegotthis.org, what would it be?
Oh, great question. If you've been or are in cancer treatment, us getting more opinions and things that really helped you is so helpful for us. If you go to wegotthis.org, you can make a submission or join our email list, and it'll have a section that you can write in about. And if you're open to sharing just, what type of cancer you have and some things that really made a difference for you, that's the biggest need that we've uncovered of all the people who have been setting up registries, is they really want to know what the rest of the community needs. And eventually, I hope to have a lot of these features within the site where people can give, recommendations, or even like rate things, kind of like a Yelp of different products and things like that and how it helped them. But in the meantime of us having that funding and being able to do it, it's really, grassroots of us just talking to you. So if going on and you're open to sharing some things, that could really help a lot of the people in our community who reach out. We're constantly messaged like about really specific things, and you realize that I understand what it's like to go through the treatments I've been through. So living with metastatic breast cancer, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on, but I don't know what it's like to have a double mastectomy. I don't know what it's like to have leukemia or lymphoma or surgery for melanoma. Like, there's so many aspects to cancer. We talk about it as such a one thing, and it's so broad. Even breast cancer there's so much more to that than people realize. So any help there is amazing. If you're a caregiver, supporter, someone affected by cancer, and again, I think these two segments of people pretty much create the universe, like that's everyone, please let us know what would help you too, because this is just as much for the caregivers, the invisible patients, the supporters, as it is for the people actually living and going through cancer. So the questions you might have, we're an easy sounding board to ask that to. And any of those things that come up help us in being able to then be proactive in how we're supporting this community that we're building.
That's beautiful. And I love the fact that you pointed out just the caregivers that are out there. Often they tend to be invisible and would go through the same type of mental health, and certainly has a big load and probably needs that are very unique. And I know some people are very afraid to speak out in terms of what they need, because they're like, no, 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 no. The focus is on the patient. So thank you for, welcoming that conversation and for welcoming those people into your community. So how do people find out more about you and more about wegotthis.org? What are the places they should go?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, you can, my personal is at Elissa Kalver, Elissa. My name is spelled like Melissa without the M. And then at We Got This org is the nonprofit. We're also on TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. So please check us out. That's where we've really been putting a lot of our recommendations and resources. If you see things you like, let us know. If you see things you don't like, let us know. We're just constantly improving things for everyone listening that this affects. You can also reach out to us anytime. So if you're hearing this and you feel called to like help in a certain way, or you think there's certain things that you might be able to add to what we're doing, you can email us directly, info@wegotthis.org, and we'd love to connect and see how we can continue growing what we're doing.
Elissa, thank you for your beautiful work. If you have to look back at your life to where you are now, what has been your best medicine?
There's so many things, but to be really specific, for me, I love hearing live music. I'm going to see Green Day tonight with my husband, and I love taking my daughter to live music, which might be different from what I go with on my own with friends or my husband or that. I just feel like the thing that makes you feel alive is that piece that's so healing. And when I was in the middle of chemo, my first few rounds, maybe halfway through, was around the time I was coming up with this idea. My friend invited me to see John Legend at the Greek. And I thought in my head, I'm not going to be able to go to live music for a really long time before I got this invite, because it's like, it's COVID and I'm in the middle of chemo. So even if it wasn't COVID, I'm super high risk and all these things. And when she invited me, we were like, wait, it's an outdoor venue. We got to go like early to like an outdoor VIP thing. And it was like really organized and easy. And that feeling I got from being able to feel normal and like, inspired and so great with my friends and my husband was so meaningful that kind of led to this idea of having the necessities, of course, but like being able to have the things that make you feel alive, I think is so healing and such important medicine, whether that's music or I love going to hockey games. Like find that thing, and lean into it. Like just because you're going through something, and cancer is such a, I think, representative of anything, right? Like anything you're going through. I've dealt with fertility, and I have friends who have diabetes or autoimmune diseases or grief. Like lean into what you need too. I'm a big fan of the whole idea that you got to put on your oxygen mask before you can help others. And being myself and true to that is, I think that's how we keep living and healing ourselves for sure.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing your beautiful mission. And if there's anything I or my platform can do for you, I want to let you know that I'm here and that we got this.
I appreciate it so much. Thanks for having me and just getting to meet you, and so many amazing people in the community of the public speaking world. But how receptive you were to just like immediately, I felt so connected to who you are and what you talk about and do. And your initial reaction to hearing me was like, let's talk more about it and tell everyone about it. And I love that. Thank you for the opportunity. And we definitely got this.
Thanks again.
I hope you enjoy that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if you're finding that this content is really helping you and your family members, please consider supporting our mission and our cause of elevating health, happiness, and human potential for people all over the world. You can do so by making sure that you have subscribed to this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family members, and leaving us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. All these things are going to really help elevate the show and to give us the resources to continue to bring more content just like this to yourself as well as the people that you love. If you haven't already, you might want to consider joining our community. We actually have a community where people get to engage with me in group sessions where we do breath work, meditation, where we do challenges together, really to be able to get us access to health, happiness, human potential so that we can have longevity and performance in our life as well. You can check out our community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State. It really gives you all the tools, the pillars that you need to create a blueprint to control the energetics of your life. Who are you? How you show up in the world? The choices that you consistently make create an energy in your body, and you can control this. And when you can control that, you also control the messages you give to your DNA that gives you access, again, to optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. And let me also just share a free gift to you. If you haven't already, please pick up my longevity and performance bundle where I share lecture notes, ebooks, breathwork exercises, and longevity and performance resources at thrivestatestarter.com. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you for helping us grow. Remember always, my friends, that you are your best medicine.